Welcome to Fantasy Football Universe. You're on the clock in the middle of the second round, and you have your choice between two interesting wide receiver prospects. You have Ricky Pearsall, the first-round wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers, or Troy Franklin, the fourth-round wide receiver for the Denver Broncos. Who do you go, and why do you go? Well, we're going to find out why here on the Fantasy Football Universe, so stay tuned.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Universe. We are here for another 2024 Rookie Faceoff. Today, we have two receivers we're looking at in the middle of the second round, sometimes a little earlier in the case of Ricky Pearsall. It is Pearsall against Troy Franklin. Ricky Pearsall goes at the end of the first round to the San Francisco 49ers, just walks through the middle of my shot like it's nothing. Fourth round, we have Troy Franklin going to the Denver Broncos and perhaps saving some of his fantasy value after plummeting to day three. He is reunited with Oregon quarterback and former teammate Bo Nix. So let's take a look here and see who we like better and who we're taking if we're on the clock. I know this one seems like it'd be ridiculous because one's a first-round receiver and one's a fourth-rounder, but skill-wise, I think they're a lot closer than you would have imagined. And pre-NFL draft, I actually had Franklin closer. But if you want to see the full write-up on this, head over to fantasyfootballuniverse.com, as well as stay tuned at the end of this. I'll link the videos right on screen here, one for Pearsall, one for Franklin, or head over to our YouTube channel or the site if you want any of the prospect profiles on any of the other guys who were drafted. We did them all. Follow us anywhere on social media, YouTube, Twitter, any of that. I am at FFMadScientist. He is at JMoller05, and you can follow us at the FF Universe. I guess we can get right into it then. Ricky Pearsall, older prospect. He is, I got to update that. It says in definitive, but I did some research and I couldn't find it anywhere. And sure enough, I found it right before the show. He's actually 23 years old. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. Every site, professional scouting, NFL had no age listed, but so he's 23 years old. Either way, I had him listed as an older prospect because he spent 5 years in college. So he's definitely the older of the two. It displayed elite explosiveness at the combine, put a broad jump up in the 98th percentile, and a vert in the 98th percentile, broad jump in the 92nd percentile. He can be a bit of a polarizing prospect here. I don't think anybody expected him to go at the end of the first round out of Florida. But he definitely did. He interesting prospect with 3 years of solid production after basically 2 wasted years to start his career. So it's going to be an interesting debate here. Then we have Troy Franklin. Is definitely the younger of the two. He's 21 years old, spent only 3 years in college. He was also impressive at the end of NFL Combine, but not nearly as much as Pearsall. He posted a vert of the 88th percentile and a broad of the 70th percentile. So still pretty solid, just not as good. He was once in the running. I know I had him at wide receiver 4. He was in the running at wide receiver 3. And at one point, him and Adunze was the debate. But after falling to the 4th round and not being particularly great at the combine, just average, he's fallen down the draft board, and you're seeing him sometimes in the 3rd round. Like I said, reuniting him with Oregon quarterback Bo Nix seemed to have given a little bit of hope, and I know I am a little bit more hopeful for it. I guess we'll get into the player comps here. Pearsall for me was actually both of these kind of high-profile rookie receivers. Their comps both were first-round picks. One, we haven't seen him fully break out, and the other's pretty much a bust. But so Pearsall I have, and it kind of scares me because I really liked the comp, and I really like the player he's comped to. For me, it's JSN, Jackson Smith-Njigba, whereas Troy Franklin, he is closest to Carolina Panthers former first-rounder Terrace Marshall, which at the time coming out, I thought Terrace Marshall, I think a lot of people thought Terrace Marshall was going to be great, but he never really blossomed. So what do you think here are the comps? What do you got for your own comps?
Yeah, I don't mind that comp. My whole thing with
which one?
Ricky Pearsall with JSN, like I don't mind it. I just think he's a more complete player who can do kind of everything, where he can play inside and outside. You can move him all over the place. I call him a Swiss Army knife for that reason. So, and I think he's just a better overall route runner. And that's why when we were talking about the process, I had him at the wide receiver 6 above Franklin, is because I just thought he was better and more complete. Obviously, he's older, so he should be a better player at this point in time. I think he is, and the draft capital showed up. So, yeah, I like the JSN. I kind of think he's like a JSN plus, you want to say. I've seen people say like Emmanuel Sanders, who, by the way, was a good player back in the day. I know it doesn't sound too sexy when we talk about comps, but he's a guy that can do it all. And I think in the Shanahan scheme and where he's going to be, like, that actually fits really well on what you want him to do, because he can win against man coverage. And I think that's huge. So I like that one. The Franklin one, I'm a little bit more torn on because I don't know how to feel about him. Like, the biggest issue for him is his hands. He does not trust them at all. Like, you watch the tape, they're just awful. So he's kind of like a good player. It's just he's incomplete. So he's like 80%. I know people will say he's like Jameson Williams, and it's kind of similar because they both have significant drop issues and they're both very fast and that type of player. I just don't know if he can play on the outside. So that's my whole concern with him. But overall, I think that's a solid kind of idea of the player you're getting. The guy is, he's got wheels. He could burn. He could do a lot of good things. It's just not all there. So I kind of like those two players from both of them.
It's funny how quickly the luster and the shine of a draft class fades, because last year JSN had the profile where we were comparing, saying he was better than Garrett Wilson. You know, everyone, Fields was on that team and said he was better than Garrett Wilson and better than Olave and better than Marvin Harrison, and he's a potentially generational prospect. And a year later, it's like, nah, Ricky Pearsall is more talented than him. And I'm going, whoa, shit, we've fallen. We're way low on JSN. You're a Seahawks fan, and you're way low. Like, I still have high hopes. I still think JSN's going to be a stud. But
yeah, no, I
think out on JSN, eh?
I just think he's more of the slot player. Like, I think that's what JSN. Like, I know people said he could do it on the outside. The Seahawks did not play him on the outside last year. They treated him like a slot wide receiver. So the difference between him and Pearsall is I think Pearsall could just play everywhere. Like, you could put him on the X. He's not the best there. He could play flanker, he could play a slot. JSN's more too, and he's going to play off the line scrimmage, play inside. Like, particularly with Seattle, they're not going to put him outside anyways. I think Pearsall is just more the guy you can put wherever. It's fine. So, like, there are different skill sets and how they win differently. I think JSN's a good player. I just don't know if the ceiling's there for him or not. I guess we'll find out.
All right. Let's get into comparison here. And I gotta say, like I said, for a first rounder versus a fourth rounder, there are a lot of ties in this one. I was amazed at how close they are, and I think there's more ties in this one than every other article combined. So we start with the size. Pearsall 6'1", 189. Franklin 6'2", 176. So Franklin is an inch taller, 7 pounds lighter. In the end, I call this one a tie. For me, like I said, Franklin profiles more as the X type for me, so I like that he's a little thinner and taller. He's got that little extra bit of range here. While Pearsall, for me, I don't want to say he's a slot receiver because I think he wins all over the field, but I've seen him profiled as, I think he's best out of the slot in this offense here. So for me, I just thought Franklin, taller X receiver, Pearsall, smaller, big slot type receiver. I gave it a tie because either way, one's a little taller, one's a little heavier. I think they both play different routes. I think Franklin's more the deep threat. So I wrote this one off as a tie. What do you think?
Yeah, for Franklin to be that X wide receiver, he needs to bulk up and get bigger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he gets bodied too much on, and like this is what happens with X wide receivers. Like they have to be physical and deal with that. Like that's something Franklin can't do. So if he could grow into that frame a little bit, it would help a lot. So yeah, I think realistically they're both kind of more slot-ish wide receivers right now where they are. What you basically need to get him off line scrimmage. Like Pearsall is better against press, but like get Franklin off line scrimmage, it makes his life so much easier.
But I think you said it earlier, and that's I mentioned in the article. If Franklin can hit an NFL weight room and bulk up, I think he has X potential. Whereas Pearsall, I think you said it, he has slot plus potential. I think it's the best way to describe him. Because Pearsall is never going to be your legit true X, I don't think.
Yeah, like I don't really think Franklin's going to be it either. But yeah,
I don't think so either. But the potential's there if he bulks up.
Yeah. All
right, let's go to speed. This one was another interesting one and another tie. Both of them ran identical 4.41s. So, did you think either of them played faster? Did you think the speed is more important to either of their game? For me, like I said, I think one is a faster slot guy. I think one is a faster deep threat guy. So I think I'd rather prefer that Troy Franklin won this one because I think he needs the speed a little more. But
yeah,
I'm 2 categories in, and I've got 2 ties. I don't know about you.
Yeah, Pearsall has quite a bit more weight on him, so I think it's a little bit more impressive that him running the same. Because if you look at their burst speed score and their burst score,
yeah, exactly.
Like Pearsall's is more impressive because he's bigger. He has like 13 pounds, so I'll just defer to the guy that's bigger whenever it's like close. If it's within a pound or two, I wouldn't really care. So
Yeah, if you want to go,
slight bonus for Pearsall, I guess.
Yeah, if you want to go speed score wise, it's Pearsall. But like I said, I just went straight up, and I have a tie. Route running, we finally get a winner here. Franklin, I have graded out for short 89, 94 for intermediate, 95 on deep for a 93 overall. Pearsall, I have as 84 short, 93 intermediate, 93 deep for a 90 overall. So I hit both of these as two of the better route runners. I think that I was actually surprised because I thought that I would really like Pearsall more because I thought his game was a little more shiftier in like he was better in the cuts in the short. But in the end, after grading out, I was a little bit higher on Franklin overall. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I'm on the Pearsall side of this one. When I watched him play, he's like it's smoother watching his cuts and they're more precise. Where Franklin, it's not always there with him. It's a little bit incomplete, and you kind of see like they're close. Even if you look at what Matt Harmon did, like Franklin actually comes out pretty well on most of his positions, except for a few routes and things of that nature. Pearsall just kind of gets the bump because he's just better across the board from route running perspective. So I would go to Pearsall, but if you prefer Franklin, like I got no issue with that.
Agreed. Okay, so hands. We have another one that's not a tie. Finally, Pearsall wins this to even it up. Route running was a slim one for me, but for this one, it's a sizable victory for Pearsall. Across the field, I just had him as infinitely better with his hands. Franklin, I had grading out at 71, so he's not bad. He's just kind of like he's a B, a low B, a B minus. Pearsall, I had grading out as an 89. I thought he was one of the more sure-handed receivers. Which I go on to say here that I thought this one was surprising because a good amount of Bo Nix in the Oregon offense was short shit. Like it was the dink and dunk Drew Brees offense. So I expected to see, better catch percentages and overall better hands on Franklin. But in the end, I thought Pearsall came away with the win for me on this one. What did you think as far as hands go?
Yeah, they're night and day between the two of these guys. Pearsall has some of the best hands in this class. Like he catches everything, and you see he makes the spectacular catches on top of it too. Where Franklin's the flip side. Like there are a lot of times it just seems like he doesn't trust his hands and what he's capable of doing. Like he has limitations in how he uses hands, and that come across because he had over 10% drop rate like a couple of seasons. So like you see that kind of on tape play through where you're like, this guy does not trust his hands. Where Pearsall's going over the top of his head behind his back catching one hand balls. Like they're just different players with their hands. And I think Pearsall's a far superior player on that category.
All right, moving on. College production here. This one was, I think, pretty easy. Franklin had only 3 years in college, but produced pretty much elite numbers in 2 out of the 3. His best season was 81 catches, 1,383 yards, and 14 touchdowns. Pearsall, on the other hand, had a career season of 65 catches, so 16 less, 965 yards, so give or take 400 less, and only 4 touchdowns in his final season. So, So I thought that Franklin showed by far the most upside here. It wasn't even remotely close. Like I said, Pearsall's best season had 20 catches less, 400 yards less, 10 touchdowns less, and Franklin produced multiple seasons, whereas, like I said, Pearsall had 3 decent years of production at Florida, but was not a whole lot else there as far as weapons. He never topped 1,000 yards. So for me, this one was Franklin pretty easily. I think, and this is why I go with Franklin in the end, because I think Pearsall is the safer play, and I think I quote this at the end. Pearsall is a safer play. I think Franklin, if he beefs up and things hit well and he rounds out some of his rawness, I think Franklin has the higher ceiling of the two. But what did you think as far as their college production goes?
Yes. I'm with you. Like it's Franklin hands down. He has the earlier breakout. He has the higher breakout. His dominator is better. Like across the board, he was just better when you look at the statistical category. And like with Pearsall, like a lot of times we'll talk about players being wide open. And this, remember when I mentioned Jameson Williams earlier? Like you watch Jameson Williams tape, even at Ohio State, he was wide open all the times. He didn't get targeted. Sometimes that's because guys just aren't earning targets for whatever reason it is. So like even the years where Pearsall had his best seasons, there's still a lot of times he's open. They just didn't look to him. So for whatever reason, nonetheless, like Franklin comes out on top.
Next category is Dominator, like you referenced. This one, they both were pretty solid, both over 25%, which is normally the benchmark for elite. Over 30%, I think, is very elite. But so Franklin was 30.7. Pearsall was 26.8. So I gave it to Franklin just on a numbers basis. I was interested here because I expected Pearsall to have it because, like, I don't think he didn't play with Kyle Pitts at Florida, right? Pitts was gone.
Yeah,
I
he
don't think
transferred the year after. Yeah.
I don't think I can name another pass catcher that he played with on the Gators. Like they had Anthony Richardson as the quarterback, but I would have expected Pearsall to have a higher dominator rating because I don't really think they had much competition there. Where Oregon's had some good players he's had to. So I went Franklin here, and I was kind of surprised I went Franklin. What do you think?
Yeah, interesting enough, if you wanted to do teammate score, his would actually be really high because he played with Brandon Ayuk back at Arizona State when he was really young. But yeah, it's been a while with the Florida Gators, that offense.
He's been in the league there. He's been in college that long that I've heard that he played with Brandon Ayuk, and Brandon Ayuk's he's finished his rookie deal. I heard that stat the other day, and it blew my mind, and I forgot it. Wow, you're right.
That's like that clip you see of Jaden Daniels throwing it to Brandon Ayuk at Arizona State. Ricky Pearsall's he's on the floor playing like on that play. So yeah,
one's done their rookie contract, and one was just drafted. Anyway, sorry. When you're done your drink there, who did you have here?
Yeah, I think in this one, I'm just going to defer to Franklin on it. Like, as much as I like Pearsall, like when you get in the stats categories and those things of that nature, like a lot of it just favors Franklin just because he was a better producer. So like, yeah, it's Franklin.
This one, the next one, the final one is landing spot and draft capital. So as far as landing spot goes, I gave a narrow win to Franklin. I slightly like Denver reunites with his teammate there. Or his Oregon teammate Bo Nix. There's not a whole lot of competition that he can't beat out. Pearsall going to a pretty stacked team that already had every year we say, well, there's too many mouths to feed. Now there's way too many mouths to feed. So I gave Franklin a pretty decent sized win in landing spot, but that was all overruled by the huge win I gave Pearsall in draft capital. You have one guy going 31st and one guy going 102nd. So Pearsall is going to get every chance. He's got the 5th-year option. He's going to get more chances to prove himself. So even though I far prefer Franklin's landing spot, I way prefer Pearsall's landing spot. So I had Pearsall taking this one. What do you think? Pretty much.
Yeah, it's Pearsall hands down. Like it's not even close. Like with 4th-round picks, like we see this all the time, and I posted the day after the draft of the 4th round of all the 4th-round wide receivers, and there's been like 2 that have hit the past decade. It's basically Amon-Ra St. Brown and the guy for the Washington Commanders years ago. I can't remember his name. Who was a slot wide receiver? They just don't like it's stacked against them. So he needs to be good and continue to prove it. On the flip side, Pearsall does not have to be good to continue to get chances, and that's kind of the flip side. So like even if Pearsall does next to nothing this year, which is entirely possible, going into next year, if Deval moves on or Ayuk moves on, he steps into a role and just like it's solidified. So yeah, I think it's a much, much, much safer bet with Pearsall, who I think is just a more complete player overall.
Okay, at the end of it all, I had Troy Franklin winning 3-2 to 2. So I guess here's the point. We're on the clock. You are forced between Ricky Pearsall and Troy Franklin. Who is your pick?
Pearsall. I'd take Pearsall 10 times out of 10 times. Like I hate chasing day 3 breakout like those guys. Like I know Amon-Ra St. Brown's done them before, but like it's so difficult for these guys. They have to continue to be good, and then we see this, and this happens with Javon Baker. Like people talk about this, or we talk about like Cincinnati. Like if T. Higgins leaves, what happens if they leave? They draft another player. So like Franklin's gonna have to do this for multiple years before he's solidified, not just his rookie year, also year 2. So he's gotta be really good for 2 years. So I don't want to take the gamble with him, and I think you're risking it with him. So personally, I prefer Pearsall.
Yeah, that's the problem for me. If you're getting them at the same cost, I think you have to go Pearsall because the odds are in his favor. If you told me I could take Ricky Pearsall, what do you think Pearsall's going? What's an average pick you is 202, 206?
Yeah, 202 to 206.
Okay, well, give me 1 sec. I'm going to try and bring up our last sleeper mock, the one we did for a view to a pick here. And let's see where he went. Actually, you know what? Just give me 1 sec. I'm going to try and bring up the FFU Dynasty here. Where's our draft board? Draft results. So we had Ricky Pearsall. If you don't hold on me. Ricky Pearsall went 204. In this one, it's not even close. Ricky Pearsall goes 204. Troy Franklin goes 210. That one's Pearsall by a mile, correct?
Yeah. That's like, you usually see that differentiating between them. Like, Franklin kind of goes in the 208 plus range. So, like, he's in that tier of groups where it's like Burton, and those type of players with Baker and McMillan and all those type of wide receivers. If you want to take him like early 3rd, like I'm totally on board with it. Like You want to get your gamble on that guy? Go
No,
for it.
I was expecting the ADP to be more like early second round on Pearsall and late third round on Franklin. Then I think there's a debate, but frankly, yeah, when it's 204 against 210, just give me Pearsall straight up. That's not to say, like, I think I prefer Franklin if you can get him cheaper, but I don't really want to pay the same price, essentially minus 2 or 3 picks. So.
Yeah, people still love Franklin. Like, they like the landing spot. They like his
I like him.
Like, he's getting the boosted up, even though he got day 4 capital. People are still pushing him above like Malachi Corley and those day 3 guys, like Javon Baker. He's going above all those guys. So seems to be the community really likes him. So he'll have that going for him if he hits. If he hits, like, you could probably sell him for a nice profit, honestly, too.
I prefer him to Pearsall, honestly, but the problem is I'm a man of math and odds here, and I think like I would default back to poker. And if I'm on the clock here, I'm going to take Pearsall because I think he has a much better chance of hitting day 1 versus day 4 or round 4 in the end. For me, is the problem.
And I just think Pearsall's game translates to the NFL so much better than what Franklin does. Like, I think it's just much easier for him, and then you have the draft capital on top of it, and it's Kyle Shanahan offense, so like he's going to scheme this guy open and get him a look. So it's just like, he kind of hit the jackpot, even though he may seem buried right now. If you're patient and can wait, like, I think you will enjoy having Ricky Pearsall on your team.
All right, that's a wrap on Ricky Pearsall versus Troy Franklin. If you want to watch their own the rookie profile video, stay tuned about another 30 seconds, and I'll link the video on screen for both. See the full write-ups of this or their rookie profile over on fantasyfootballuniverse.com, along with some mock drafts and a view to a pick series, some other stuff like that. Follow us everywhere on social media. Like, subscribe, rate, review, and all that fun stuff, and we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning in. We will see you tomorrow with Marshawn Lloyd, Jalen Wright, I believe.
I think so. Yeah, that sounds good. We'll do it.
We will see you tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.